This computer. Here we go. And hello, everybody. As you know me, my name is Don Self, and today I've got with me Tom. Tom, how do you say your last name?
La Greca.
La Greca. And is that Italian? What is that?
It's Italian, it's Sicilian actually, and it means the Greek in Italian. So I'm sure there's Greek blood in there somewhere.
I believe it is because that kind of makes sense. La Greca. That makes total sense right here. And I don't speak Greek, although I love to study the Hebrew and Greek when I'm studying my Bible.
There you go.
And it's amazing how many words they have. One thing can have so many different words over there in the
Yeah.
Greek and the Hebrew both, and it's
And then
amazing.
and it went from the Hebrew translation to the Greek, and then from Greek to everything.
Yeah, and that's like all of Paul. If you really want to study Paul's writings, which is more than half of the New Testament, just
Yeah.
it really helps if you understand more Greek. But that's why one of my Bibles it helps break it out.
Wow, that's awesome.
And
Good
I
for
love
you.
doing that. I love studying that stuff. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, anyway, Tom here is with a company called Callaghy. Is that how you pronounce it?
Callaghy Recovery is the company, the spinoff that exists now. It's a spinoff from Callaghy Law, which was a law firm that for almost 30 years has been doing what we call medical revenue recovery. And Callaghy Recovery is the spinoff from Callaghy Law that is now focused exclusively on the NSA and IDR arbitrations.
Now, for many years, for about 12 years, NSA meant something different to me. It meant National Security Agency because I worked under the director of the National Security Agency as a cryptographer breaking Chinese and Russian code. But
Wow.
but today NSA means the No Surprise Act, which is a little bit different.
Yes. Yes.
And
Awesome.
you
Yes.
want to
And
explain how
that
that came
explains
about being?
that explains a little bit about your interest in Greek and Hebrew as well, because that's cryptography itself from my point of view.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah. So for sure.
So tell us a little bit about this No Surprise Act and what all prompted it and what it is.
Sure. So about 10 years ago, the first what we call the state surprise bill law was passed because the states preceded the federal government in trying to put in these protections. New York was the first in 2015. Florida was 2016, California 2017, New Jersey 2018. So a number of states, Texas was 2020, a number of states started to put in the protections I'm about to describe. And then the federal government got in the act effective January 1st, 2022, with something called the No Surprises Act. So, what the surprise bill laws try to do, federal and state, is to protect patients from getting out of network bills when they don't make a decision to go out of network, right? So if you have out of network benefits in your policy, maybe you'll shop around. Maybe you'll go to an out of network surgeon if you have a long-standing orthopedist that's been treating you and you say, hey, I want to go to my out of network orthopedist. I don't care that he's out of network. Or you may go to an in-network provider. So the you tend to shop around if you're going to go out of network, if you have out of network benefits. Okay. The easy example of where this could be a problem is the emergency room. So the example I always give is I'm 30 feet up a ladder. I'm cleaning out the gutters up by the roof. I fall off the ladder, screw myself up good, bang up my knees, my face, my back. EMS takes me to the local hospital. I could get treated. Let's say I have Aetna, right? I'm in the ER. I don't know who's going to treat me. I come through. I want anybody to treat me. I don't care who they are, who they're in network with. Doesn't matter to me. Just get me fixed. So they will treat me. And if I get treated by an out of network spine surgeon, plastic, ortho, anybody that treats me on an out of network basis in that emergency room context, they, I would, there was always a possibility that I could get a big out of network bill from those providers. Okay.
Right.
So I could get treated. I'm happy when he saves me from paralysis, but when he sends me $100,000 spine surgery bill 4 months later, he's no longer my friend, right? Okay. So these laws say, hey, medical provider, in that situation, you can no longer balance bill the patient but the patient has to be treated as if it's in network. And you can arbitrate for more money against the carrier because the initial payment the carrier is going to give you is not something you agreed upon. So the carrier makes an initial payment that's meant to be very low. It establishes the patient's in-network coinsurance, and then the patient's left out of the dispute, but the medical provider can arbitrate for more money against the carrier. So it opened up this whole opportunity for the medical provider to no longer have to balance bill, but to arbitrate against the carrier to get a fair reimbursement. Okay.
Okay.
So what we're dealing with is out of network ER. And then there's the second category. So think about this in the elective surgery context. So now I'm getting elective spine surgery. So I go to an in network surgeon and I say, hey, I want everything to be in network. Make sure you take me to an in network facility. Right. He says, not a problem. We're going to go to this hospital. I know they're in network with Aetna, no issues. Well, unbeknownst to me, I'm in the OR and I'm getting spine surgery, and there's an out of network anesthesiologist. There's an out of network intraoperative neuromonitoring provider. There's a surgical assistant that's out of network. So, in the elective surgery context, if it's an in network facility, but an out of network provider that treats me, it's the same thing. They can't balance bill me, but they can arbitrate for more money against the carrier. So, in that context, surgical assistants, anesthesiologists, radiologists, intraoperative neuromonitoring providers, and in some contexts, which we can get into a little bit later, even some primary out of network surgeons performing at in network facilities can also come into this arbitration process. So it opens up a whole world of arbitrating for out of network care that didn't exist before. So it's very important for the out of network space.
So when you say arbitrating, sometimes when people think of the word arbitrating, it's like a husband and wife going there and having their marriage arbitrated, or someone that's in the middle to decide one way or the other.
Yeah,
Is that the way it is with this whole IDR thing?
essentially, yes. So the federal government and these state governments have set up arbitration processes right in their statute. So they have portals. You go to the portals, you start the process. You have to submit certain documents. The carrier gets to submit certain documents. And ultimately, an arbitrator makes a decision based on the submissions, and they make a decision. Now, this is baseball style arbitration, which means there's no compromising. The arbitrator can't compromise. He either is going to take the carrier's position or he's going to take our position, the medical provider's position. That's it, one or the other. And it's going to be whichever one he thinks is the most reasonable given the services. So you got to resist that temptation to demand more money, because if you demand too much, you get nothing,
Yeah.
right? So you gotta kind of tweak your demands downward to some extent, because you want to make sure that you look like the more reasonable party in the arbitration, because you want to win something. You don't want to win nothing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're asking for too much, chances are they'll go with someone else. And I guess the main thing is reasonableness is what it all boils down to.
Boils down to reasonableness. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Why are most billers unaware of the size and scope of this whole IDR thing? Because most
Yeah.
billers I talk to don't really understand it.
Yeah. So the medical billing community is interesting because many of them in that community have been doing things for a long time. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Some of them I talked to have been doing it for 50 years, right? So they grew up in the process where you had to do appeals, right? Because everything was based on the health plan. So they're in a mode where, well, you do a first level, you get the payment in, you do a first level appeal. Then when you get that determination, you do a second level appeal. Then you get a final determination, and then you got to figure out, am I going to write off the money or do I keep fighting? So they've all grown up in this appeal process and are pretty much entrenched in it, at least the ones that are slow to move into the new landscape, right? But But one of the things that they have to grasp quickly is for the claims that are eligible for this process, and that is the out-of-network ER and the out-of-network inadvertent services at in-network facilities, the two categories I just described. For the most part, we only have 30 days to start the process. So if they're doing an appeal on day 15 and then they follow up on day 45, they're already untimely, right? And the carriers made sure they put that in the law, and the timelines are very, very, very demanding. So it's unfortunate, but to the extent the medical community is still doing appeals for claims that are eligible for this process, they're needlessly suffering because they're not going to get anything through the appeals if the claim is eligible for this arbitration process, because the carriers know if they're not acting in 30 days to start the process, they're out of luck.
And they're going to take advantage of that right there and make sure that they capitalize on the ignorance or lack of knowledge of the billers on this. And I've been doing this for 41 years myself. I've been a consultant for a long time. And there's
Mhm.
also a lot of billers out there, honestly, that they're just going after the low-hanging fruit, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't really know how to appeal. They don't know the ERISA. And so I've been
Yeah.
teaching ERISA since 97.
Well, there you go. So you'll appreciate this firsthand. So when you're doing ERISA, trying to recover money that you're rightfully owed under ERISA, I mean, there was no convenient process to get a claim resolved,
No.
right? I mean, what are you gonna you're gonna send appeals? So think about this. So the historical process was sending appeals to the very entity that underpaid you to begin with, right? So I always joke with clients, I say it's like going through a divorce and the judge is your spouse. You're going through an ugly divorce and the judge is your spouse. Who in the world would ever think that the medical community would ever get a fair shake with the insurance industry making a decision about the payment dispute, right? I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
get, or even
crazy.
if the judge was the spouse's parent,
Yeah.
that would be another way of putting it too, I
There
think.
you
Same
go.
thing,
There you go. And if you wanted to do something to enforce your rights legally, you would have to somehow sue under ERISA in federal court. And let's face it, the claim had to be a real big claim if you're going to take those steps where you're going to bring a federal court action under ERISA.
Mhm.
So all of the 10,000 and 20,000 and $30,000 claims that were grossly underpaid most likely were probably even too small to be pursued in a judicial setting. So this changes all that. The beautiful thing about this law is it it keeps the patient out of the medical dispute, the medical payment dispute. It gives the medical provider a convenient forum to get the dispute heard, and it removes control over the dispute away from the carrier and puts it in a neutral arbitrator. So it's a beautiful thing for the medical community.
So if I'm sitting there talking to my clients, like if I'm talking to a family physician, it's a $130 claim. It's probably not going to be much worth going
No,
out there. But if I'm talking to a surgeon, like one of my clients is a specializes in specific dental surgery up in New Jersey, in fact. Dr. Moriarty, and his claims might be anywhere from 80 to 130,000.
right. So he's
Uh,
he's an oral and maxillofacial surgeon, it sounds like.
yeah,
Okay. So maybe he takes ER call, right? So let's go through a scenario. So let's say he takes ER call, patient comes through, me, I fell off the roof, right? Banged my face, jaw broken, teeth a mess. My whole face is screwed up. ER takes me in. Dr. Moriarty, his name was Moriarty, you said?
yeah, uh-huh.
Okay. He fixes me all up over the course of 2 or 3 days, several procedures. He may have $100,000 claim, right? Now he's not in network with Aetna. I have Aetna in this scenario. So he's going to get a payment when he bills that claim to Aetna. He's going to get a payment, an initial payment that's going to be somewhere between 5 and 10% of that 100,000. So he bills 100,000 to Aetna. He gets paid maybe $5,000, right? Now the
Right.
reason it's intentionally low because they need to establish my in-network coinsurance. So let's say my coinsurance is 20%. So he bills 100,000. They pay him $4,000 on a check and apply $1,000 to my patient responsibility, right? So
Right.
now he's paid, quote unquote, 5,000 because he can bill me the 1,000. He gets a check for 4,000, but he can now arbitrate as long as he takes action within 30 days of that payment. He can arbitrate for more money, and we consistently recover in the current environment about 75 to 85% of bill charges. So he'll end up getting an award 90%, and we succeed 90% of the time. So 90% of the time, we're going to get an award for $80,000 for that surgery. He will have already been paid 5,000, so he'll get an additional check of $75,000.
And yet the bank, I would imagine that the insurance company is sitting there banking on the fact we send him $4,000. He's going to appeal this. We're going to take longer than 30 days to handle the appeal. He'll be outside of the IDR process and we win.
There you go.
And that's kind of what they're expecting is the lack of knowledge of not only the 30-day process, but the fact that IDR even exists to this degree, or he has this kind of
That's
chance of winning because
that,
he's probably talked to other people and says, well, no, the insurance companies are going to beat you to death and they're going to win 80% of the time.
absolutely right. Absolutely right. In fact, I was at a meeting. We were called down to HHS to meet with HHS and CMS last spring, myself and the founder of the firm, Sean Callaghy, to give feedback on how the NSA is doing and all of this stuff. And at that meeting, this is last spring, they told us only 10% of the claims that could be arbitrated in this process were being arbitrated. So that meant 90% were not. So the carriers are doing handsprings all the way to the bank because only 10% of these were being arbitrated. Now, let's say that number is now 20%. Maybe the course of a year, it's grown. Maybe it's 20%. Well, that still means 80% they're getting away with paying this low initial payment and getting away with it.
In this month's newsletter that just went out a couple of days ago to all my subscribers, I pointed out in there that the MGMA points out that 35% of denied claims are appealed, 65% are not. And in the IDR process that you're talking about for the No Surprise Act, it sounds like it's probably between 10 and 20% were appealed through the IDR process, and 80 to 90% are not. And
Yep,
it's and no wonder that explains why companies like United Healthcare has a 4.3 billion net profit in a quarter,
that's right.
and they're banking on that fact.
Yep.
So what kind of overall impact have you seen overall? You said you guys are winning about 80
Yeah.
to 90% of the time?
Yeah. For the most part, and now don't forget it's baseball style arbitration.
Yeah.
So you can adjust, when we go into arbitration, we don't necessarily demand the billed amount. We'll demand an amount that we think will be looked at as the more reasonable of the two positions, right? Now,
Okay.
if the carrier is paying $5,000 on that $100,000 emergency surgeries, um, they make it easy. That is such a low amount. They make it easy for us to win with a more aggressive posture, right? So I joke with the team and I'm like, look, let the carriers keep paying so low, they make it easy for us to win. And the medical providers that are in this process are happy as clams. The ones that aren't, of course, are not happy because they're living with the $5,000. But the ones that are in the process are like, great, I don't mind a $5,000 initial payment if I can win the arbitration and get another 80,000.
Yeah, it makes total sense right there. Now, most billers, I think, in the country, and I speak at the American Medical Billers Association convention every year, and
Mhm.
I've got literally hundreds of billers that I've worked with all over the country because I've been doing this a long time. But most billers, I would imagine, are probably in a good position to identify this at an early stage, early enough that they can circumvent it for their clients.
Yes. So as soon as that, well, these days a lot of electronic remittances come in, right? Everything's electronic. So as soon as that out of network electronic remittance or EOB comes in, it's got to get flagged to go into this process to get started in this process. Now, the great thing about how we work with billing companies is there's basically three avenues. Well, mainly two avenues that we could go down. Actually, three avenues. So, if we're some of the billing companies we work with, it'll be a mutual referral process. So we'll refer medical clients to them for billing. They'll refer medical clients to us for arbitration. It's kind of a mutual referral. And when we have that process, I I go to bat for the medical provider. I go to bat for the biller with the medical provider, and I say, look, you should be paying them for their billing percentage for the money we recover in arbitration. And the reason for that is number one, they are doing work because they have to feed us the documents and they got to be on top of their game because we only have 30 days, right?
Hmm.
So you don't want to cut them out of this process. That's being penny wise and pound foolish. I said you should give them their medical billing piece. We're going to be recovering enough money that you're going to be happy paying them their percentage and paying us our percentage because like I said, you're getting 75, 80% of charges, you're doing okay. And if you try to cut the medical biller out of this process, you're going to do nothing but breed resentment. We all need to have skin in the game for this to work as effectively as it should. So the one avenue is having a mutual referral process. The second avenue is doing something where we have a revenue share. Well, we'll do a revenue share with the medical biller. Callaghy Recovery, which is a non-law firm, would do a revenue share with the biller. Okay, so we can arrange it that way. Or the third way, which has become more and more popular, is white labeling our services. The medical biller will white label our services. So we will be essentially a wholesaler to the medical biller. We'll give them a discounted contingent fee rate, and then they'll turn around and resell our arbitration services to the medical provider. The good thing about that for the medical biller is it keeps them, they'll have the relationship with the medical provider. We will not be in the middle of that relationship in any way, but we'll be contracting with the biller. The biller turns around and contracts with the medical provider for the arbitration services. We give them a discounted rate. They make a percentage on top of what we charge them, and everybody has skin in the game and everybody's happy and we're all making money.
That works out, and so everybody's benefiting from that perspective. It's kind of
Yeah,
like in my company. I always look at it, if it's not a win-win-win for everybody, then it's not a win for anybody.
that's
That's
right.
just the way I do business. That's just the way, whether or not I'm talking about my telecare or PM company or my consulting company, same thing. Now, I want to
Yeah.
go back to a moment here for a moment on this 30-day thing. When does that 30-day window begin? From the date of the ERA or the date that they received the claim, or when does that 30-day window begin?
Under the law, the terminology is it starts with the payment. It's the payment date.
Okay.
All
Okay,
right.
good.
So sometimes an you'll get an EOB, but you won't get the check, or you might get a remittance. So sometimes they'll send it to the patient, and the medical provider doesn't even know it's been paid. So payment, we always say to the provider, look, we got to think of the earliest date where it looks like you're getting a payment. We should use that date for our own internal purposes because that way, as long as we're using the earliest date, we remove all of their arguments about being untimely.
Okay.
But it's really when the payment comes into the medical practice. So we can if an EOB comes in and there's no check with it, and the check comes 3 weeks later, we will certainly argue that the receipt date starts the clock if we need to. If we have the time, we'll go by that EOB date to shut out any argument from the carrier. But if we need to, we'll use the later date. But we, of course, want to avoid giving the carrier any kind of argument that it's untimely.
Totally. I get that. And see, and one of the things I've written a couple of books on ERISA, and I teach a lot of seminars on ERISA, by the way.
I'd love to read them.
Yeah, I'll make that happen for you because you guys are really helping my clients on this right here. But one of the things about ERISA that a lot of providers don't know, and I say providers meaning practitioners,
Mhm.
is that the insurance carriers have a 30-day window from the date they receive the claim to issue an adverse benefit determination. They're not allowed to issue one beyond that unless they've given the providers 15 days in between. That's why I was asking. So if the provider or the insurance company takes 30 days to pay the claim, that's the date of the ERA. That's the date that they actually put the money into the doctor's hands or the patient's hands. And at that point, the 30-day window begins. So we've got to make sure we educate the billers as well as the payment processors in the medical offices that you can't just sit on this right here and hope and pray and beg and plead with the carrier to come back and pay more money. You've got to take a proactive stance on this right
Yes.
here.
Yeah. Now those pre-existing rules, the ERISA rules and all of that, they still apply if you're talking about denials, right? So this process really is for underpayments.
Well, even an
So
underpayment is classified as an adverse benefit determination.
that's right.
So,
That's right. But we
okay,
can't arbitrate denials in this process. For the most part, it's limited to underpayments.
underpayments. Okay, so, but if it, and how would, well, I'm going to have on my website where we have this video right here, and I'm also going to put it on my YouTube page, and I'm going to put a link in there for them to be able to reach out to you. Um, this is exciting to me because I'm trying to think of my clients right now. What specialties should I be reaching out to? I'm assuming ACH, I mean, not ACH, ASCs, ambulatory surgical centers.
Well, they don't, their claims are not going to come into this process because they're not emergent,
Okay,
right? They're not emergent, but but the practitioners who practice at an ASC, if it's an in-network AFC, the practitioner claims will be able to come into the process if they're out of
okay,
network. So it's out of network ER, so the ASCs won't come under that umbrella,
okay.
and it's out of network surgical and ancillary services that are performed at in-network facilities. Now, the in-network facility could be an ASC, but the ASC claim itself, the facility claim won't come into this.
The facility wouldn't. Okay. So then
Right.
we're looking at surgeons, assistant surgeons, anesthesiologists.
Yeah,
Uh,
so any hospital ER or
mhm.
the standalone ERs in Texas, those are very popular in Texas. So standalone ERs, hospital ER facility claims, and then any practitioner that works out of the ER. So you can have any surgical discipline, OBGYNs that do emergency childbirth, gastroenterologists that take call for any kind of gastrointestinal surgery, orthos, spine, plastics, really any surgical specialty that takes call on an out of network basis. Those are all good candidates. And on the elective surgery side, any surgeon that's out of network and an independent out of network practice, this has relevance for them.
Is there a minimum amount of the claim that you need to have in order to take the client on?
It's there's no minimum to take a client on, right? So we have clients that send us one file a month and clients that send us 1,000 a month, right?
Okay.
So the size of the client matters not. We have a workflow that's built. We feed the workflow. It doesn't matter if it's one file, 5 files, or 100 files. The workflow is built. There is a size component for the individual claims, and it's relatively small. It's $1,000 as long as a claim has a likely recoverable amount of $1,000. We'll take on the claim,
Okay, because there's a lot of work that goes into it from your side
and we
that you got to
front
make
all
sure.
the upfront costs. By the way, there's absolutely no risk for the medical provider or the biller. We front all the filing costs. There's our agreements don't call for a term commitment or exclusivity or require X number of files be sent to us or Y number. It's completely risk-free, and we like to keep it that way.
So basically, if they don't collect on that right there, then they don't owe you any money?
They don't we have two different versions. The
Okay.
ones that have the ones that tend to have a greater proportion of smaller claims, we do charge them for losses. If any provider that has a greater proportion of larger claims, we don't charge for losses. Okay, so
Okay.
depending on the size of the claims coming from that specialty or provider, that could make a difference. But but nobody even really sees that because we win 90% of the time. And when we win, we get refunded the biggest cost that we fronted, which is the arbitrator fee. So when we win, here's the example I like to use to kind of highlight this. So somebody gives us 10 claims and they all have a recoverable value of $10,000. Okay.
Okay.
So we win 90% of the time, but let's say we win 8 out of the 10. That means $80,000 to the medical provider client. Okay. We will invoice $16,000, which is a 20% contingent fee rate that we typically have. So we'll invoice 16,000 plus 10 times $115, which is the CMS filing fee. So it'll be 16,000 plus 1,150. And then we'll invoice two arbitrator fees for the two losses. And the arbitrator fee, let's say, is $500 for each one. So 80,000 goes to the provider. The provider gets invoiced by us $18,150.
So the provider's still coming out with more than 60,000
Yeah,
out of it, where they would have lost it all had they delayed, not
that's
known
it.
about you, tried to appeal it
And
under
they had
no.
to front no money to get it.
Yeah. That sounds like
So
a heck of a deal.
yeah,
I
yeah.
really like it. Well, Tom, you've been phenomenal, and you've taught me a lot, and I think that you're going to help a lot of my clients out there as well.
Well, I hope so, and I can't thank you enough, Don. If there's anything else, I mean, I'm happy to keep talking. I once I start talking about this stuff, I can't shut up. So I'm happy you were able to kind of navigate my motor mouth, and that's terrific. And I'm happy to be available again for some more to help clients. I like to think that we're on the side of the good guys in this, and that I'm have a higher calling than just myself here.
I think you are on the right side here. I really do, because the insurance companies, I just cannot believe how much profit they keep hiding away. I'm fighting them constantly. Everything from Medicare Advantage organizations to Medicare to commercial
Yeah,
claims that I'm fighting using ERISA, all the way to going back to the employer and getting them involved, and the plan administrators getting them involved. It's
yeah.
nice to know that we have you guys. You're out there as another weapon to be able to fight to try to protect the providers. So
Yeah,
thank you.
and even on the ASC side, Callaghy Recovery can't do anything for them in this arbitration space. But keep in mind, Callaghy Law, been representing ASCs for 25 years, so we can help on the ERISA side if it comes to filing a lawsuit or anything like that. Callaghy Law is available as well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because, again, as you know, my background with ERISA, for
Mhm.
teaching that since '97. So, and I feel like I've still just got barely a little bit of the word out there.
Yeah, I got to tell you that one of the things that's so appealing about this is you avoid all of those challenges of trying to recover under the health plan. AOBs and powers of attorney and designation of authorized reps and SPDs, all of that stuff that floats around in ERISA world, there's no need for any of that in this space.
I love it, and that
Yeah,
it keeps it simple.
yeah, yeah.
Well, Tom, I'm going to say goodbye and thank you so much for your time today. You've been a real, I think you're going to be a real blessing to a lot of my clients.
I hope so.
I truly believe that, buddy.
And Don, thank you so much.
Well, you bet,
Appreciate
buddy.
it.
You have yourself a blessed day. And again, I look forward to talking to you in the near future.
Me too. And you do